Welcome, everybody. This is the spoilers part of Knives Out. We're going to get into the spoilers. So, spoiler warning, guys. You want to start it off or you want me to start it
Yeah,
off?
I'll start it off.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so I'll get more into what I was talking about with the consequences. Yeah, there's in the non-spoilers. If you saw it, if you didn't, what are you doing here?
Go check it out first before you come.
Yeah, in the non-spoilers, I pointed out there's a little bit of a lack of consequence to some of this, like some of the moments in this movie. It's a specific one I'll bring up without taking too much time. So the main character, Marta Cabrera, she's like the maid in the movie. She's basically revealed to be the murderer, not on purpose, but like she accidentally killed the guy, and she's kind of trying to cover it up the whole time. So there's obstruction of justice, like a lot of them, and that's kind of some of the funnier moments where it's like he like is like so oblivious to what's going on behind him, but he's supposed to be the super detective, but like it's making fun of that kind of thing. But yeah, so she's kind of like obstructing justice this whole time. She's ruining videotapes, and then towards the end of it, she like runs away from the cops in her car, and like speeds through the town and like basically lies and yeah, she lies. She does lie, and she tells them that the Chris Evans character told her to drive away, and then they find out that he didn't tell her to drive away. So she evaded the cops, obstructed justice, tried to cover up her own murder and stuff, and he's just kind of like, I trust you to make the right decision and eventually turn yourself in, but like she's a murderer, and he's just kind of cool with it, and then eventually finds out that she didn't actually murder him and stuff towards the end, but like she didn't know that either. She thought she murdered him. And so it's just kind of this series of events where it's like, okay, clearly she's done something wrong though, done something illegal, but the cops don't seem to care because she's needed to be there for the rest of the story to work. And the rest of the story is fantastic, but it just kind of, there's no consequence to her running away from the cop. Like he eventually catches up to her, says like, oh, he told you to drive, didn't he? And then she's like, yeah. And then he's like, okay, I'm going to hop in the car with you now. Can you take me somewhere? And like stuff like that. Like, we got to keep working on this investigation. Just like brushes off the fact that she just like ran from the cops with a guy in her car. And it was just kind of like, there's nothing more you want to follow up on that. And then when he does find out that like she was lying and she like thought she killed the guy, he's never like, oh, well, you were actually evading the cops. Like, that's actually, you can't do that. You're like running through the city recklessly, but there's no consequence of that. It's just kind of weird. And like how she would, like, obviously she was obstructing the investigation the whole time, and he found that out. He's like, oh, that's why we couldn't find anything here. That's why the tape got destroyed. Like, she destroyed evidence. She was reckless. Like, how is that not, how is there no consequences to that? Because there's literally none. And like she is a nice person, has a good heart, and that's kind of the point of it, and that's why he kind of lets her off the hook. But it just like seems like, I don't know, at least the other cops might not something. But yeah, and I mean, there's other kind of smaller consequences with how the family members interact with one another. I don't know, it's almost a little too fitting how they are punished for the consequences, and it doesn't seem like a realistic consequence. But yeah, I think that was the big one that I was just like, the whole movie, the rest of the movie was like, wait a second, what? What about the time you're just gonna let her off the hook for all that stuff? But yeah, there definitely was a bit of a lack of consequence, and to the parody elements of it, that makes sense. But like I said, I would definitely classify this movie as just like a murder mystery movie, and so that didn't make sense. The next one, or the last one I'll mention, is the drawn out explanation of what happens, because at the end of murder mysteries they always got to go, and then he did this to cover this, and then that happened, and then she went to this place, but he didn't know she did this, and stuff like that. So you kind of figure it out like right before he starts talking, like doing that monologue. So the monologue isn't really needed, because you already know. You're like, oh yeah, I know, yeah, he did, yep, that he did that, and then she did that, yeah, I know that, and you're following it. But it's just so drawn out. And people are like, wait, but he couldn't do that. And he's like, but he could. And you're like, yeah, because of the thing. And he's like, because of the thing. And you're like, yes, I know. Keep going. I want to see where this concludes, because I know what you're going to say for the next 5 minutes. I just want to see where it goes. So the explanation like actually wasn't necessary because I think they actually told a good enough story for you to just understand it at the end. It was like there are definitely pieces that I wanted him to expound upon and explain what happened here, but like the like root of the like mystery, I was like, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And he like held on to the end where he would out Chris Evans, and I was like, we all know this is where it's going. Like I don't know, and people are like, who could it be then? It was just kind of like, it was weird. It was one of the worst moments in the movie. I still don't think it was a bad one. It was just like a, I get it.
Yeah.
Move on kind of moment. So those are the two that really like threw me off in the movie. But I really did enjoy. I did enjoy the parts where they did kind of like tell you who the murderer was like at the beginning, and you're just kind of like, what? Now what are they going to do with this?
Yeah.
And then they created another narrative that was just as interesting. I did like that. That kind of threw me off in a good way, and played it out in a good way too. So I really appreciated that.
Yeah. That was actually one of my positives, was when they revealed the mystery of her accidentally killing the guy in the beginning.
Yeah.
It was like in the first act, and you're just like, okay, now what?
Yeah.
Like, we already know who the murderer is.
What are you gonna do now?
Actually enjoyed that whole part, and then like what follows kind of after in their way of actually solving.
Yeah, and they did set up a lot of
mystery.
foreshadowing with that.
Yeah.
And like a lot of payoff, and it definitely all fit together in a nice way. There wasn't like a piece that I was just like, that. Why would he do that though?
Yeah.
You just did that to make me think something else. Like, it didn't feel that way at all. It definitely felt like they had an idea and they went with it.
I have a neutral point.
Okay.
Where it's Craig's character. He comes in and everyone's like, oh, I know you. Like, you're like this big, huge shot guy that solved this mystery in like New York or something like that. And then like, he doesn't solve the mystery at all.
Well, he does at one point say like, I knew it was you because the blood on your shoe. But then that's to like my point of like, there's no consequences then.
Yeah.
So you knew she was the murderer the whole time. And you like, she's running away from you and like hiding like evidence.
I liked how the detective wasn't really shown throughout most of the movie, that he wasn't like this Sherlock Holmes kind of character with unnatural powers and stuff. Yeah, he was. Yeah. But that also created the negative side where he was way too laid back, and I'm all like, you're not really an effective detective. Yeah. And later on, it kind of gives like this really lame payoff. That's my only neutral part of it, where I was all like, they did his character well, but there's this whole.
It could have definitely been better. Yeah. Like it was definitely some pieces missing to his character, but it was still enjoyable. Like he was definitely fun.
Yeah, he wasn't the main character, so I was like, I didn't really like care about him too much. Yeah, I really liked the main character and how she couldn't really tell a lie, and every time she told a lie, she threw up. That kind of gave like that whole point where she's all like, well, how is she going to get her way out with the family if everybody knows that she can't lie?
I remember thinking like when they were talking about that and he was asking her questions knowing that she was going to throw up, I was like, why don't you just be like, hey, are you the murderer real quick? Like that would solve the whole thing, right? And even if you didn't think it was her at the time, which obviously you did because you pointed out that you saw the blood on her shoe like the first time you met her, just in case, just as a detective, if you knew that someone threw up when, like, I don't know, I would probably be like, hey, do you know who the murderer is or something like that at the very least? But he didn't do that.
Yeah, but I actually enjoyed that part. It's kind of just like,
I liked it as her character.
Yeah, as her character.
Quirk, but I was
like her little flaw.
The detective. Like the detective's like, is he good or is he bad kind of thing? It's like, why don't you just, if someone like handed you a truth serum and you're like, now how do I get the truth out of this person though? Thanks for this, but still have this problem to solve. Like it's just like, what do you got it in your hand, man. You got to look at what's in your hands.
That's probably my only problem with Daniel Craig's character, because all the other characters like Zod, I actually enjoyed him. Chris Evans was the best. I was well surprised that he filmed this just right after he finished Endgame.
Mm-hmm. Movie did run a bit long though, for my taste. Like,
yeah,
it was
I felt like there were like those cut scenes where they started showing like the houses and playing like the classical music and stuff, and you're just like, okay, I know you're making fun of murder mystery movies with like the piano playing and all that stuff, and like all these like cut jump like shots that are just random. It was unnecessary, but I get what you're doing.
Yeah, if a movie's gonna be over 2 hours long, like you either have to have something leading up to it where it's like it's a sequel or like a trilogy or something, or like it's got to be some big like blockbuster type deal, like something brand spanking new that everyone's been clamoring for. This didn't really fit that criteria, and it just definitely felt like I was like, okay, I like everything in this, but like I don't need this to take my entire night.
Like I said in the non-spoiler part, it is an original story. Like it's hasn't been done before in murder mysteries. So
I don't think this was a risk.
Just got to give that a real like high credit, because
for sure,
and that's why it's an 8. It's a solid 8 for our Samurai Review rating. So
so it has been an exciting couple months for movies, and I think this is one of them that deserves a little credit.
Hope you guys liked our discussion for Knives Out. Hit that like button. Definitely subscribe to our channel. Share it with your friends who are moviegoers that do enjoy movies.
Check out other Kazuya Cam production stuff. They got stuff. So check it out.
This stuff and that stuff.
Look at all this stuff. There's so much stuff. Look at that stuff. Oh my god, and this stuff? Hold up. Wait, is that some more stuff? Woo! That's some good stuff. Kazuya Cam production. Anyways, bye.